So, did hip hop destroy democracy, or at least did it help destroy democracy? Now, I just kind of said that for clickbait purposes, but I'm also not really kidding when we talk about like the gravity of how America is changing. And I really thought about this video for a minute. I was like, I was kind of going back and forth on making this video, mostly because I don't want to get all political and start talking about stuff that this channel usually doesn't talk about. But at the same time, two of the most important things to me are hip hop in America. Now, of course, there's other things as well. And I think that there has always been a responsibility for hip hop to lead the people. It's always been a source of social justice. It's always been a source of, the urban community uniting over music and situations, social situations, civil rights movements, et cetera, so forth. Music has always been a major role in the political movement of America. And I feel like hip hop in general, over the course, since its inception, really, has always been important. But I feel like the last 4 years have not been the case. And you're kind of seeing that reflecting in terms of like hip hop sales, in terms of just the vibe of hip hop and the music that's coming out. Like hip hop just didn't hit the same over the last 4 years. And so I kind of decided to make this video about hip hop and democracy and kind of looking at this in the way of, did hip hop fail? And was hip hop the cause of what we're seeing right now? Now, obviously, the short answer is no. And if you don't want to dive into this with me, go ahead and click away. That's fine. But I'm really going to take a look back at hip hop over the last decade or so, maybe even 20 years, 30 years. We're going to go way back to actually Public Enemy in the 80s and 90s. But if you're here to learn some stuff about hip hop in terms of like its social impact on a very light level, like I don't have a PhD in hip hop or anything, but I really do care and I've been around. Stick around to the end of the video because we got some really insightful stuff. But if you're not here to talk about politics and you just want me to talk about video games and entertainment and other stuff, so be it. I'll see you next video. But what I really wanted to talk about, I actually have even notes. This is how serious we're getting this time. I have little notes over here that I'm going to touch on. If you think about the origins of hip hop to begin with, it started in the Bronx in the 1970s, and it was a cultural response. It really was about the economic issues faced by African American and Latino communities. And it was kind of like a place of solace. Even to this day, I mean, the reason why I make music and make hip hop is because it's a place of solace and a place for me to release and speak on things in a way that are native to me. And African Americans, Latinos in these impoverished communities, they really found a way to express themselves in ways that they could be heard. And that's what kind of made hip hop so important, especially when you tie in like the Black Panther Party of the time, where hip hop was used as a medium for political discourse. It really let people say what was wrong and see what was wrong with the world and like, this is wrong and this is why it's wrong. And people started to really gravitate towards that. And so you have artists like, Public Enemy, who famously had the Fight the Power movement. It became an anthem, like damn near anthem for racial oppression against the political structure of that time, which was at the time the Reagan era, and which was 100% Republican and essentially really oppressing that community, the African American, Latino community, the hip hop community, taking away rights and putting them in situations that forced them to speak up. And when you move forward, you have artists like Tupac Shakur, Kendrick Lamar, KRS-One, Immortal Technique, all these artists that kind of come to mind who speak on the political distress of the community. Nowadays, you have artists like, Killer Mike, it comes to mind, et cetera, so forth, and they still exist. But I think what's interesting about it, when you look at, especially 2020, the last election, where you saw record numbers of people coming out and voting, you also saw a lot of political distress and the country was falling apart. In particular, I think about George Floyd, the Black Lives Matters movement, all the protests that in its inherent structure, deep down inside, is hip hop at its core. And so you saw hip hop pop out in 2020. Now, kind of since then, over the last 4 years, and this is kind of like a very hot take, however you want to take this, hip hop is kind of boring. and it reflects in the sales. You know, you had Drake dropping 3-4 albums over the last 4 years. And one of the most exciting things that happened over the last 4 years was the conflict between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, which you kind of saw two sides of hip hop, you know, like the glam and the glitz and the I'm rich vibes that existed with hip hop versus like the really socially active, uh, introspective and political angle of Kendrick Lamar. Those like came to a head and clashed. And besides that, though, there wasn't a lot for hip hop to speak on. And so hip hop was kind of quiet. Now, of course, you had artists like not Kendrick Lamar, but Killer Mike. He was doing rallies, Chance the Rapper, even Cardi B was popping out. You had, Beyonce do the Kamala Harris rallies and Megan Thee Stallion. So it not like it went away entirely, but it felt very corporate. It felt very constructed. It didn't have the raw grassroots energy that we had in 2020 and in previous elections, where you see the people actually pop out and actually support what is happening in the world. I don't think hip hop cares about pro-choice or pro-life laws. And I don't, you guys can take that as you want. Like I said, this is a video that I didn't really want to talk about, but we need to talk about it. Like, hip hop is not caring about abortion. So you're not going to see 2 Chainz go and do an abortion rally. You're just not. When you saw George Floyd, when you saw all the political distress that was happening in 2020, it gave reason for hip hop to be around. Because as I said earlier in this video, it's always been about the political fight. Joe Biden as a whole, as a president, was just very, I guess, quiet. Now, I know what people are thinking. Well, what about the wars in Ukraine and over in Israel and Gaza? You're right. But with that said, I think one of the most vocal rappers over the last several years about what's been happening out there has been Macklemore. Macklemore, people. Now, I'm not knocking Macklemore. Macklemore is going to do what Macklemore does, and that's fine. But think about that for a second. Now, there are other rappers who have spoke on it. I think Dizzy Wright comes to mind and a few other rappers. But we're not seeing Jay-Z speak on it. We're not seeing Nas speak on it. We're not seeing Black Thought speak on it. We're not seeing any of these like rappers that are held on the highest tier of the rap world speaking on these issues. Kendrick Lamar didn't make a Gaza anti-Israel verse, did he? You know what I'm saying? Like, hip hop just didn't pop out in the last 4 years because they probably didn't feel the need to, because the issues weren't speaking to them. And when I say them, I mean Blacks and Latinos, the urban community in general, because it's not just Blacks and Latinos, especially nowadays. We have a much more melting pot environment. But what you're seeing is these people, the issues that these politicians are speaking on are not connecting. And when it came to the political candidates that were chosen in terms of Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris, you didn't see a lot of support, like a lot of rappers be like, Kamala is the one that's going to continue what we want. Now, take that as you want, because like I said, there's a lot to dissect in terms of how the voting actually turned out. But it's just something that I really noticed in the grand scheme of things, where it's like, I feel like hip hop was very, very quiet this year. And the previous, all the way up in 2020 to now, hip hop has been very quiet politically. Now, sure, you had your rappers dropping their songs, but even then, I kind of have felt disconnected from hip hop because I feel like the political voice is lacking. We've had a lot of rappers get introspective, which I do appreciate. You know, you have artists like Kendrick Lamar who, you know, dropped his therapy album, and then you have Chromacopia, which is kind of the same vibes of introspective things. But we're not seeing a lot of rappers rap about how bad Biden sucks or how bad Trump sucks. When you think about the 2020 election, we had literal theme songs like F Donald Trump, whole ass songs and remixes, rappers jumping on dissing the president. Like, it's a lot different when you look at like how hip hop really played this last election season. And if you look at the voting influence, just how voting actually played a role in all this, like hip hop has been used strategically by politicians since day one, or at least since the Obama era. Like, Obama figured it out, where it's like, I need to tap into the hip hop world because that's where the voters are really at. That's where these urban communities are really supported by people who listen to hip hop and people who understand why hip hop exists. And so when you look at studies shown, like there's a 40% increase in voter registration among young people who are influenced by hip hop from 2016 to 2020. That alone speaks volume. A 40% increase in voter registration among young people who were influenced by hip hop culture from 2016 to 2020. And if you think about all the things that happened during that time from 2016 to 2020, particularly in 2020, it makes sense and lines up. And so also this interesting fact that I looked up is that socially conscious hip hop saw a rise of 30% in streaming during the protests in 2020. And once again, it's like having an anthem for your pain. Like Fight the Power was a song that was necessary for people to have something to almost kind of chant and say while they were trying to protest against the people. F the police. I mean, think about these songs like on a level that's outside of the artist in terms of like how these songs are being used and how they have been used. They're used to literally say F the government. And when you think about artists like, I don't know, Rage Against the Machine comes to mind, or any other artists that are politically driven, these songs end up becoming anthems. They end up becoming the songs that they literally play as they're marching towards the White House or towards the Capitol or whatever. And so even in 2020, Spotify reported a 40% spike in playlists that were related to protests, social justice themes, and a lot of hip hop tracks that most of these playlists featured a lot of hip hop tracks, which really underscore like the influence that hip hop really, really, really has. It also generated a lot of money. If you want to get down to it, like the money that was generated from all these songs, people doing donations and, you know, rallies for BLM or whatever political candidate, you saw all that start to flow. You start to see the music. But then after that, after Biden got in office, it all just kind of dropped. But interestingly enough, hip hop still generated $10 billion in 2023 with political activism, quote unquote, being the platform. And so I think about how Killer Mike won the Grammy, right, a couple years ago. And you could argue that Killer Mike is probably like the most politically active artist out right now, but there's a lot of mixed views on his viewpoints, which is fine. But the thing is that he's one of the very few voices that is actually using his music as a platform to speak about political injustices. And I'm speaking on a higher tier because I'm sure a lot of you would probably be like, well, what about this artist? What about this artist? I'm talking like artists that are above a certain level of popularity and notoriety that are using their voices to speak. And as a result, Killer Mike won the Grammy. Now, are those 100% coinciding? Kind of, if you really want to break that down. But the point is that there are benefits about talking about the struggle. There are benefits about talking about what's wrong with the world. There's benefits of being like looking at something and being like, I don't like that. That needs to change. Because people need that. We don't always want to just pop bottles in the club. We don't always want to just be sad and rap about our fathers. We want to have something to fight for. And that's been the beauty of hip hop since day one, is that it gives us something to fight for. And so you think about hip hop's role in democracy in general. I think that is actually probably one of the most important things to the democratic and political process that people overlook. But since day one, since hip hop's inception, it has always had a major impact on the communities that are overlooked and underappreciated. I'm talking about urban communities, hip hop communities, impoverished communities, quote unquote ghettos, if you want to use that word, projects, et cetera, so forth. These are communities that will pop out and vote. They will vote. They will go to the polls and vote for whoever they feel like is supporting that community. And if you're supporting hip hop, then you're supporting that community. And if you even look at the last election with Trump and Kamala, Trump was trying to get 50 Cent on his rallies, because after someone tried to take him out, you know, he had the Many Men theme song and the meme was going around and all that stuff. I think Trump has a better understanding of the power of hip hop than what the Democrats did in the last election. The Democrats allegedly threw $10 million at Beyonce to come and speak for 2 minutes at her rally, you know, Megan Thee Stallion. But these aren't artists that are necessarily in the struggle. We're talking about Beyonce here. Beyonce. Like, I like Beyonce, don't get me wrong, but she ain't walking no rallies. She ain't going to be posting no post about Palestine or Gaza or any of these things. And so that's where you kind of feel that disconnect. right? Like if you look at how Trump wanted 50 Cent on his rallies and uses music, and you look about where 50 Cent has come from and how far he's gotten, and now he has political candidates asking for his cosign. 50 Cent turned it down, which I think he should have, which is a very good move. But you're seeing the impact that hip hop has in 50 Cent. When Beyonce is being paid $10 million to do a rally for 2 minutes, you don't feel it because you know she's being paid to be there. You know it's like more of like a campaign for herself than it is for the community. Not saying she doesn't care. Please, Bayhive, don't attack me. I'm just saying that you can feel the energy. The energy is different. It hits different when you actually sit there and take a look at what is happening in terms of who is signing these, co-signing these candidates and putting these platforms on. Like we didn't see Killer Mike at any Kamala Harris rallies, or maybe we did, but I didn't see him there. And so it circles back to my initial question. Did hip hop kill democracy? Because right now, and like I said, I'm not trying to get political. I'm really not trying to take this route, but things are looking like we're going back to the Reagan era. And things are looking like we're about to get mad conservative, mad Christian, which isn't necessarily anti-hip hop, but in the sore core of it, it actually is. But hip hop didn't really speak up enough over the last couple of years to prevent that. So now, are we going to see more music? I'm hoping that we see a new rise of more conscious, socially active, political music over the next 4 years, 8 years, whatever, because that's one of the core elements of hip hop. Yes, there's 5 elements of hip hop, but no one talks about those hidden elements, that hidden element of social activism and politics. Because like I said before at the beginning of this conversation, hip hop was born out of the struggle. Hip hop was born out of the urban communities that aren't feeling appreciated by their government, that are afraid of the police, that are afraid of or not able to feed their families because of whatever type of social constructs that exist in their neighborhoods. And so when they go home and they put on Fight the Power, or they go on and put on Kendrick, or they go and put on a Tupac song, they're connecting with artists who feel the same. And when you do that on a massive level, you see the results. You see it with Obama. You see it with Biden. And like, I almost feel like Biden even pulled like a psychological chess move when he sat down with Charlemagne, which, by the way, the Democrats didn't do that this time around. They sat down with one of the most notable one of the most notable media figures in the Black community right now, Charlemagne, and he had a conversation. During that conversation, he literally challenged Black people and said, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black enough. Biden said that shit, and it fucking worked. Because I think psychologically, him being on Charlemagne, him supporting the hip hop community, just by him being on Charlemagne and having that interview, it shows that he's willing to talk to us. And he's willing to have that conversation. Now, it was a bold ass move to challenge us and be like, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black enough. That's a bold ass move. But there's a lot of weight to that statement. Because when you hear that, you're like, low key. Because you look at the opposition, right? I'm not saying the opposition is anti-Black. But anti-hip hop, maybe. Anti-urban, maybe. We'll find out. And so you really start to feel that when Biden says that, when he challenged us. I don't feel like the candidate with Kamala ever did that, ever challenged the Black people to pull up and vote. She was too busy catering towards other directions. And once again, I'm not trying to take this super political. I'm trying to keep this in the realm of hip hop. But I feel like she never challenged the Black people or the urban communities to be like, you should vote for me or your fucking hip hop's going to go away, essentially. Your community is going to be gentrified. Your people are going to be gone. Which, once again, I'm speaking in extremities, but when I look at the grand picture, it's like, maybe. We'll see what happens. With that said, if you watch this whole video, it's probably because you do care on some level about hip hop. You care about democracy. The title is a little clickbaity. I do apologize for that. And I think I'm going to do something crazy with the thumbnail too. But I really want this message to get out, especially to artists, because it's not just a hip hop thing. You know, rock music, jazz, any music can be a voice for what you really want to see in terms of change in the world. And it's about you using it. That's what artists are for. We're here to provide perspective, provide insight, provide inspiration, provide growth for those who need direction. Fight the power, right? So if you're an artist and you got this far, you watched this entire, where we at, 20-minute video, I appreciate you because it shows that you care about hip hop in a way that you should. It's not just about having background music while you cook or up in the club. Hip hop is a way for your voice to be heard. So if you're an artist rapping, find a way to make your voice heard over the next 4 years. That's the only thing I can really ask of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you support the current administration, then you should speak on that and use your voice as a way to keep the political core of hip hop alive, because I really feel that element is dying. And if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. Please tell me how wrong I am. I would love to be wrong about this, but I'm just kind of following the trends. You know, I was looking up articles about this and really trying to think about hip hop's role in terms of where we're at right now. So, like I said, if you watch this video and you felt some type of way, please leave your thoughts. No, like, follow, subscribe, share, subscribe, all that bullshit. I do appreciate that. We'll try to make more content back in the other stuff that we're talking about. But that's kind of why I took some time off, because over the last couple of weeks, several weeks, I just saw the politics kind of overwhelming me mentally. I didn't want to talk about that. And now it's like, all right, let's get back to business, but let me just kind of express this in a way where rappers, artists can get something from this. This is not just me ranting about America. This is for the hip hoppers. This is for rap. If you think my question is wrong, did hip hop kill democracy? Prove me wrong. Or let me know in the comments. Either way, I love each and every one of you. Stay safe. We're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. Peace.